So, almost a year ago, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I want to talk about how I came into an anxiety disorder and how I got over an anxiety disorder. So, um, let's start with the negative self talk. I like to call myself a recovering negative thinker. And I say recovering because it's something that I still battle with, that I have to actively fight, sometimes on a daily basis, to overcome. But I want to talk about the self talk part. So I wrote about self talk in my workbook that I'm publishing. It is available for pre-order on my website, and it will also be on Amazon really soon. But self-talk is the way that you talk to yourself, either aloud or silently, meaning mentally, that can influence how you feel, your motivation, or even cause your body to react in certain ways. So sometimes I would think about the worst case scenario for everything. Anything came up, I was automatically going through all the negative things that could come from it, to the point to where I was having physical reactions. So I started having heart palpitations, shortened breath, all kind of, weird things that was going on within my body. So much so that it got so bad till I went to my general doctor, my primary care doctor, and he sent me to a cardiologist who made me do a month-long study. I literally had a heart monitor, and I had to do a month-long study to ensure that there was nothing going on with my heart. So after going through that for a month, I ended up getting the results back and finding that there was nothing wrong with my heart. Complete, clean bill of health. So that's when I knew, like, okay, this is something you have to figure out and work out. And it all started internally. My uncle and I have talked about this before, but it is amazing the way that our mind works, the way that our mind can have an effect on every other part of our life and in our bodies. It all starts in our mind. And I am not a psychologist, or I'm not a clinician or anything of that nature. I'm just an educator, and I'm a girl that's been through a lot. And in my heart, I believe that I manifested this anxiety disorder based on negative thoughts. So because I was always living in a state of survival, I was always trying to get ahead of all of these negative thoughts, all of these things that I would imagine could happen, that never, majority of them, 99% of them never did happen. But because I was in that state of survival, I manifested a anxiety order up here first, and it came out in other physical ways. And it was all through my self-talk. It was all through that negative voice in my head that I allowed to overtake me. So I want to talk about how I got over that and how I overcame, and how God delivered me from anxiety, and how I'm working every day to overcome the negative thinking. So I ended up getting into therapy. I had intense therapy for a good solid year. And I went to a therapist initially because I felt like I had some type of attention deficit disorder. I couldn't focus on anything. If you know me personally, like, I love my house to be very clean all the time. I wasn't able to keep my house clean. I wasn't able to keep things organized. I just could not focus on anything to the point to where it was affecting my life. So I went to get evaluated to see, like, am I having some type of attention disorder? Like, can I not focus? Like, what is going on? And when I was evaluated for that, I started working with a therapist. She was a middle-aged Black woman, like superb. We vibed for sure. And she screened me for ADD, and it came back that I didn't have ADD. But what I did discover, which I had no idea that I had, was anxiety, which brought upon all of those symptoms of ADD. But it wasn't ADD, it was anxiety. And I had to start working through that. I had to do, and I hate the word self-care because everyone overuses the word self-care, but I had to start doing some things for myself. I had to refocus and realign a lot of different parts in my life. It started with my home life. I had to get back on a very strict schedule. I had to ensure that I was getting the proper rest. I kind of shied away from social media for a while. There was a lot of different things that I had to do in order to get back on track. And then with work, I had to learn how to disassociate work, or disassociate the things I was doing with the work at work with what I had going on at home. So when I came home, I had to stop working. And when you have your own business, that is something that can be very, very, very difficult to do, because it's like work never stops. You're always working. You're always thinking about working. You're always, you have to make yourself available to people, especially when we had a private school. So I had to make myself available to parents, employees, X, Y, and Z. So you're always in a state of giving yourself in a way to what you have going on, whether it be your kids or your work, school, whatever it is. And you just have to learn how to find that balance. And that was one of the things that helped me the most with overcoming anxiety, is by finding the balance. The other thing was I had to learn how to release myself from people. And when I say release myself from people, release myself from what are people gonna think? What are people gonna say? What if people find out? What if this? What if that? Negative thinking. And I had to relinquish the things that weren't my responsibility. I had to relinquish the things that I didn't have any parts of. I had to forgive people for the things that the ways that I felt they had wronged me. I had to forgive myself. There was a process. It was a lot of different things, which is kind of what pushed me into writing the book. But there was a lot of different things I had to work through in order to come out on the other side. But the most pivotal thing that I had to do was to surrender to God. And I don't mean the cookie cutter surrender. I mean the lock myself up in the house for a whole weekend and just cry out to God until I felt a shift, until I heard him, until I felt satisfied in what I received. So let me back up a little bit. So I'm sorry, I'm distracted because I'm trying to, it looks like I have on two different earrings, but I don't. But anyway, so in the midst of doing therapy, I was hungry. I was hungry for a change. I was hungry for a difference. So in the midst of therapy, I decided to take, it's called the Works Master Class, I believe, by Rebecca Lynn Pope. She's a person that I follow on YouTube. So I signed up, took her course, and I followed the course to a T. In the first 30 days was a 30-day detox where you detox from social media, you detox from friends, family, people around you. You know, you kind of basically isolate yourself. And that is kind of what pushed me into having an everyday prayer life and meditation. And that is where I found my deliverance. Like and a lot of people mistake deliverance. I understand that there are supernatural deliverances where God will literally touch you, transform your entire life. Um, Anytime I think of that, I always think about my uncle's story. He was on drugs and out of jail. He tells this story all the time in sermons, but he was like as low as it can get sometimes for some people. He was pretty much there. And he had a miraculous transformation where he accepted Christ and never touched drugs again, never ran women again. You know, he had that miraculous transformation. So I'm not discounting that can happen at all, but that's just not my story. When I felt that transformation from God, it was something that I had to keep I had to keep myself in check, if you will. So in the midst of that 30-day detox, I began to pray and meditate daily, preferably early in the mornings. And I remember going into meditation and prayer with, I don't want to use the word agenda, but with a expectation, I would say. And I had made up in my mind, like, this is it. This is it. I can't do this anymore. What I'm doing isn't working. I'm dying. And I don't mean dying physically. I mean dying spiritually. Like, I'm dying. So it was literally like life and death for me. So I began to pray and I began to ask God to show me who I am. Show me how you look at me. Show me the things that I need to do. Show me where I need to go. Whatever. And I really, really, really meant that. Like, I really meant the whatever part. You know, it was whatever. Whatever God said, that's what it was. And when I prayed that, and I really, really, really meant it, because I was very, very, very exhausted, tired, frustrated, confused, angry. Almost any negative word you can think of, I was there. So I remember crying out to God and telling him, you know, I give up. I relinquish. And if you know me, I'm a control freak. I relinquish all control. I don't want it. I don't know what to do with it. I'm tired. I didn't try to do it my way for X amount of years. It's not working. I'm dying. Help me. Help me, please. I'm dying. And it was almost instantaneous. I could feel that spiritual release. And it was so emotional. Like I'm getting like goosebumps. But it was so emotional because I remember just like crying uncontrollably, like that deep, deep, deep wailing cry. And I was in here all alone and I was bawling my eyes out. And I just needed to do that to release all the things I hadn't cried about, all the things, you know, because when life is happening and things are happening, sometimes you don't have time to stop and grieve it and cry about it and do this and do that. You have to keep moving because that's life. You have to keep going. So it was like I just had a grand release of all the things that I hadn't released. And when I felt that release, that is what changed everything. That is what shifted everything was for me to actually have that surrender of I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done. And I know that there's people that's going through that right now. There's people combating anxiety. There's people who wake up in the morning and your heart starts pounding at your chest and you don't even think that you've had a thought to even bring that about. There's people who's doing this. That was me all day. Just trying to breathe, just trying to catch my breath. And I want people to know that there's something on the other side of that. Get to the root of it. Figure out what is really, really, really causing me to have this emotional reaction. What is causing me to live in a state of survival and anxiety every single day? What is causing this? And when you figure out that answer, even if you can't figure it out, take it to God. And I'm not talking about the patty cake prayers that we pray in church on Sundays and it sounds all nice and sweet. I'm talking about the real ugly prayer that you're going to have to pray all by yourself when you're by yourself, and ask God to reveal that to you, to show it to you. Cry out to him. I promise you he will answer you. And be real. Be ready to relinquish the control. Be ready to hear what he has to say. And if I'm 100% honest, I never prayed that prayer before because I didn't want to know what God wanted me to do. I didn't want to know because I wanted to do what I wanted to do. What if what God wanted me to do didn't align with what I wanted to do? Then now I'm in a position to where I'm actively not listening to God, even though we have those internal things that goes on within us that we know that we're not doing the right thing. We know we're messing up. We get those little intuitions about things like that. But when you're asking God and he answers you and you still do the wrong thing, that's a whole other situation. So I never prayed the prayer of surrender in that way, or I never asked God, what is it that he really wanted me to do? Because I didn't want to know. Because I had my own agenda and I wanted to do what Shayla wanted to do. And I wanted to be with who Shayla wanted to be with. And that's just the God honest truth. So you have to make up in your mind that you want something different. Until you make it up in your mind, you're going to keep suffering. You're going to keep going through the motions and the cycles. And medication isn't going to do it for you. I refused to get on any kind of anxiety medication. I was upfront about that with any doctor or therapist or anyone that I spoke with. I let that be known first. I'm not doing the medication. I'm not. I do not feel like that's what God had purpose for my life. So that was out the window for me. So I had to figure out how to overcome it. And that was through the grace of God, honestly. And there was work that I had to do after I felt that deliverance to make sure that I didn't get myself back into that same rut. That had nothing to do with God. And we blame a whole heap of stuff on God that has nothing to do with him. That's my stuff. That's stuff that I had picked up. That's stuff that I had to figure out how to deal with on a day in and day out basis. God isn't the author of negative thinking. That's me. That's stuff that I picked up. So I have to do the work to undo that and figure it out. That's my story. So yeah, I want to leave you guys with that. So if you feel lost, if you're suffering from anxiety, other mental health disorders, whatever it is, seek out God. There is a reason for everything that we go through in life. There's a reason. So seek out God, Ask him what is it. Ask him to reveal yourself to you. Ask him what is it that he needs from you. How is he trying to get your attention? And go from there. So I am always praying for you guys. I love you genuinely. And I hope to see you guys on another video really soon.